welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We have a fun video today. It's one that I've been wanting to do for a while now, and it is kind of a compilation of many different comments we've been receiving, a bunch of different videos of people just saying like, wow, I never thought about that, or I never thought about cooking with that, or man, I need to add that to my pantry. So today I want to bring you a list of 5 pantry staples in my kitchen that are a little bit odd and maybe not really a pantry staple in most kitchens, but I do a lot of experimenting in the kitchen with ways to save money and save time on food and on cooking meals. And these pantry staples, I would say, are kind of the oddities, but are extremely useful and items that I turn to and grab week in and week out. So let's get started.
By the way, if you would like help building your food storage, scroll down to the description box of this video and click this link for our free 1-year food storage plan. We calculated a year's supply of food for one person, then broke that data down into a week-by-week list of items to build your pantry on a budget. We'll send it straight to your inbox. If you're new here, we invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss all of our upcoming food preservation, pantry storage, and gardening tutorials. Now back to the kitchen.
Okay, pantry staple kind of weird item number 1 is buttermilk powder. I see milk powder used pretty frequently in kitchens. You know that I use it frequently in mine, but buttermilk powder is less used, I think, and it is really delicious and incredibly multi-purpose. If you make any of, I'm trying to think of some like homemade Bisquick, homemade waffles, or a pantry mix, if you're really into making your homemade mixes for common baking staples that you would buy at the store, anytime one of those recipes calls for milk powder, if you swap it out with buttermilk powder, you will not be sorry. This is excellent. There are also several recipes that I come across that call for a splash of buttermilk or a quarter cup of buttermilk, and that's just not something that I buy. I don't buy buttermilk, but we do have a hack that we have shared here on the channel where if you can add a splash of distilled white vinegar to regular milk and let that sit for 10 minutes and just very slightly curdle, which I know sounds gross, but it gives you a pretty decent buttermilk flavor. But buttermilk powder reconstitute with water does an even better job. But more importantly, it's dry in a dry state, which means I can make all of my homemade mixes with buttermilk powder, and it is delicious. So this is an absolute pantry staple in our house. The second pantry staple in our house, and if you are a friend of the channel, it will not come as news to you, but if you're new, it might, and that is tomato powder. I don't have much left. I'm almost out. I mean, I have plenty more, but not in this jar. Tomato powder, I cannot even say how often I use this and for all the different ways. Being that it is in a dry state, it does make its way into my dried and dehydrated meals and jars a lot in place of tomato sauce. But probably more importantly is it is basically an instant way to create tomato paste, tomato sauce, and tomato juice, just depending on the amount of water that you add to it. We have a video dedicated to showing you how to turn tomato powder into all of those things that I just mentioned. So I will link that video in the description box below if you are interested in checking it out. We also have it on the blog, so I will link the blog post below as well in case you prefer to read rather than watch. But tomato powder is something that I use every single week as I'm cooking, as I'm preparing meals, when I'm doing a batch meal prep day and making a whole bunch of dried mixes. Our rice mixes, rice in jars, feature a lot of tomato powder. The Italian mix, the Mexican mix, both of those feature tomato powder, and it is just incredibly useful. Okay, so somewhat odd pantry staple, but an absolutely necessity in our house is dehydrated or freeze-dried frozen mixed vegetables. Frozen mixed vegetables, we all know how multi-purpose they are, but typically they do live in the freezer. But you can absolutely throw these trays on your dehydrator and dehydrate them and make them a shelf stable. And that's an absolute must-have in our house with very limited freezer space and losing power somewhat frequently. We just don't depend on freezers around here. But, I mean, y'all know all the different ways you can use this. You can throw this into soups, you can throw it into casseroles. I will sprinkle this into our pot pie fillings. This is probably the most used way is pot pie fillings. We do a lot of meals in jars where we can up beef pot pie. Actually, it's venison pot pie. We call it beef, but it's actually venison pot pie, but also chicken pot pie and rabbit pot pie. But vegetables, when I don't, either I run out of those already canned up meals in jars, or I just want to save that for another day. Maybe I have a little bit more time in the kitchen and I don't really need a dump and go meal. I will make a pot pie filling from scratch using these dried mixed vegetables. But it's also just really, really nice, especially in these really cold winter seasons when I just want to do a giant pot of soup and I'm just tossing in this, tossing in that. I will almost always grab a jar and toss in some frozen mixed vegetables that have either been dehydrated or freeze dried like this. Okay, and the pantry staple number 4 is chicken broth powder. I know that chicken broth is a common pantry staple and chicken bouillon is a common pantry staple, but chicken broth powder to me is a little bit different than either one of those. Of course, it's dried and not a liquid like chicken broth is, but chicken bouillon cubes, they're a whole lot more processed than what this is. This still has some ingredients that I'm not super excited about, but it is a lot cleaner than your bouillon cubes that you get. And I cannot tell you how often I pull this from my shelf and use it. It goes in all of our cream of soups. If you're new to the channel, we stopped buying cream of soups years ago. We make cream of chicken, cream of celery, cream of mushroom, cream of broccoli for like broccoli and cheese soups and casseroles and all of those things. All of that can be made from scratch. Very, very simple with a simple roux and milk, and then you add in whatever dehydrated vegetables that you want to get the flavor that you're going for. And this is the star of the show in all of those recipes. It is part of the base mix that goes into all of them. But of course, I don't generally reconstitute it with just water to make chicken broth because we can plenty of chicken broth from our chickens in our backyard, but also from other meats and stuff. Our onion broth is probably our go-to thing, so I don't reconstitute it in broth form very often, but you absolutely could just add water. In fact, the instructions are on here somewhere, but I think it's, yeah, 2 teaspoons to 1 cup of water is gonna make a cup of chicken broth. So you can absolutely reconstitute that. And it makes 56 cups of broth. Think about how much space you are saving. I mentioned the money savings, the time savings, but one of the other reasons why I store these things is for space. Think about the tomato powder. I don't have to store tomato paste, tomato sauce, or tomato juice. I just have tomato powder. I don't have to store cream of chicken and cream of celery and cream of mushroom and all of those other bajillion cans. I can just keep this on hand. So it's space savings as well with all of these pantry staples that I've mentioned in this video, but this is a must-have in our family. I'll have it linked in the description box below. It should be available at places like Walmart, Kroger, that kind of thing as well, but Amazon carries it too. So last but not least is lentils. Now, please forgive me, these are not lentils, these are split peas. I have lentils, but they are in my back pantry storage. And honestly, I didn't feel like dragging it out and trying to get out a cup for this videos, but split peas look very, very similar. And they are used in a lot of ways pretty similar. However, lentils are far more multi-purpose than split peas. Lentils I kind of thought was a pantry staple in most people's houses, but when I mentioned them in that Great Depression video, so many of you said that you have bought lentils in the past and they've just been lingering at you, staring at you judgmentally in the back of your pantry, and you haven't known how to use them. And that's what inspired the series that we are still currently going through right now, which is how to use lentils. We have the video on the sausage patties, we have the flatbread, and I've got some more planned that I'm going to be bringing to you. But lentils have proven to be so multi-purpose in the kitchen. You can turn them into all sorts of things, a meatless spaghetti sauce. And as I have mentioned in those lentil videos, we are by no means vegetarian, but we are frugal eaters. And so including meatless meals is just part of trying to cut grocery cost. And lentils are a fantastic way to do that. If you have not seen those videos on the how to use lentils, I think I'll go ahead and create a playlist so that all the lentil videos can be in one playlist, and I can just send you that playlist. So I will do that, and I will link that down in the description box below if you are interested in learning how to use lentils and maybe adding them as a pantry staple in your pantry. Okay, that's all for today, and we will see you next time. Bye.